Just for context, before we get into it, so you can see what you can expect, this is the sheath I made recently for this Mora knife companion. As you'll see, it's a very simple construction, but it's extremely solid and it works really well for holding your knife securely. It goes nicely on a belt. I should not be undoing my trousers in front of you. Notice it's a very simple construction, simple design, but very sleek, and got some interesting elements which I'm going to show you how to do as we go along. So before we do anything with any leather, we're going to need to start with a piece of paper, because I'm not giving you the pattern this time. You have to design this yourself. And what you're going to do is fold that piece of paper in half lengthways, and then we're going to draw a line down that spine, down that fold, roughly twice the thickness of your leather, so about 6 mil in this case. And then you're going to go ahead and place your knife on that line and draw around the blade and the part of the handle that you want covered by the sheath. If I can teach you one thing today, there is no exact science to making sheaths. It's really a feeling kind of thing. It's based on what works for you. I have a little bit of a drop in the handle here. The knife actually comes out at a slight angle and curves around, and that's natural for me because of the curve that this handle has. That makes more sense to me than just coming straight out the top. Once you've got that marked out, we need to now mark out the space for the filler piece. I don't know what it's called. It'll make sense in a minute. Basically, just draw a 10 mil line offset from the one you just drew for your blade and for your handle. Finally, we're going to draw out our belt strap if you want to attach this to your belt like I do. The easiest way to figure out how long you need this loop, it should fold roughly in line with the top of your knife handle, and then of course allow enough space for it to fit the belt that you're going to have it attached to, and then an extra piece as well once it actually gets riveted down. For reference, mine extends 4 inches past the top of the handle of the knife as you go up, and then when that gets folded down, that fits just like this. Now for your leather, let's put the piece of paper on top, and we're going to mark around the outside, round the outside, round the outside, and then of course we're just going to cut that out with whatever knife you happen to have on hand. The spine, you're going to cut this just a little piece. Basically just place your piece of paper over a piece of leather, poke some holes down that nice edge line that you have to kind of get your edge, and then draw around the outside, round the outside, round the outside, and you're going to cut that out, and we're going to show you what to do with that in a minute. Then what we're going to do is attach our spine. I know I keep calling it a spine, and it's actually the opposite of a spine because it's at the front, not the back. Whatever you want to call it, the rib, and I'm just going to keep calling it a spine. We're going to glue that on one side, make sure it's nice and firm and secure, because you really want this to be nicely in line with your other piece to save sanding later. So I like to kind of make sure it's set a bit, dried a bit, and then once it has, I'm going to secure it to the other side, fold it over, and clamp it somehow in place. Personally, I find this set of clips from Dollar Armor, which I think were $1, to be the easiest and most convenient way to do this. Now go and off for 30 minutes, make a cup of coffee, tea, whatever you want, and come back once it's nice and gone off and dry. You do want that glue to be pretty well set before you go on to the next stage, which is of course sanding, which is my least favorite part, or at least was my least favorite part of leatherworking until I discovered an easy way of doing it. I'm going to cheat a little bit here because I have a Dremel. If you don't have one, you can just use sandpaper. Just try to get everything as smooth as possible. Then we're gonna go ahead and bevel all of the edges using a pretty coarse beveler. I don't know if coarse is the right word, but pretty big beveler, because I want nice, smooth, rounded edges across this entire project. And we're gonna hold off on Tokonol for now because we're gonna be staining this, but if you're not staining it, then you could go ahead and Tokonol and burnish the edges now if you wanted to. And if you're wondering, yes, it does stain hands. So if you're using leather dye, leather stain, whatever you wanna call it, I would suggest wearing gloves. I don't, and I should. I was walking around most of this week with what looks like very late stage liver failure. We're going to do the stitch lines, just a standard stitch here, 4mm from the end, using 4mm center stitching, diamond stitch punches. I'm using I think it's a 0.6 or a 0.8. I can't remember. Great, it doesn't say. Well, that's 0.4. It's 0.4 in one direction and it's 1.2 in the other. So roughly 0.8 tiger thread, but just whatever thread you have will be sufficient. I should say at this point, before you go any further, if this is your first time making this sheath, probably try it out now. Probably put the knife in there, make sure it fits, because if it doesn't, you're gonna have to start again, and there's no point wasting, you know, another half an hour finishing this off. This is the point now where we're gonna burnish all of the edges. So if you have toconol, if you have beeswax, if you have water, whatever you're using to burnish your edges, if you are burnishing them, you don't have to. You could just keep this rough looking if you really wanted to. All right, so if everything fits, then we're pretty much there. What I would suggest is if you are gonna toconol the inside of your leather, then we're gonna do that now. And then we're going to figure out where we want our rivet to go that's going to hold everything together. If you're using small rivets, then you're probably going to need at least 2, maybe 3, depending on what type of rivets you're using and how strong they are. If you want to show that you know how to shoot your shot, then you can try what I've done here, which is a little spent shotgun shell as kind of a washer for my rivet, and that means I only need 1 rivet that will hold this on really nice and securely. If you're just using those small double cap rivets, then I would suggest probably using at least 2 or 3 of them. I think that's going to give you a more secure fit, or just a couple of rows of stitching. Either way, whatever works, just something to hold that in place. And that is it. If you want to get really fancy and you do have a Dremel, then, you know, since you do have some internal flesh side showing here, you could do what I've done, which is kind of like sand it down and polish it up just a little bit, and then you're applying coats of paint. And then finally I put tan coat on this, which just makes it look nice and shiny and sheeny and clean and polished and just beautiful. That's what gives it this kind of, this final finished look. Again, you don't have to do all this. You could just have a single piece of leather. You could just cut it to shape, glue it, stitch it. You don't worry about the edges, don't worry about the color, don't worry about the inside. Just, it will be just as functional as this. It just won't look quite as pretty unless that's what you're into. So anyway, that is the video. I know this was a bit wishy-washy. It wasn't quite as clear or as specific or as well defined or described as usual, but that is intentional. Believe me, I'm not just half-assing this video. I'm not just winging it. It's just the fact that when it comes to making a sheath for a knife, ultimately it's going to be up to the knife you have. It's going to be up to how you like to carry that knife, where you want to carry that knife, how much friction you want on your sheath. Hopefully this gives you kind of a starting off point of the construction that you need, the steps you need to take. If you don't get it quite right the first time, don't worry, try it again. My first one was pretty much perfect. This was the one I made and have used. The one I made during this video to show you how I made that one actually didn't work very well, because I went too far on the stitching up here, which means the knife doesn't actually fit. So believe me, I make mistakes as well. Anyway, I hope you found this video somewhat useful, interesting, helpful. If you did, as always, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell for all future videos so you get notified when they arrive. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one.